morning. Welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the second day of February 2024. Thank you for joining our show today. And it's today's going to be kind of fun because we're going to be talking to two gentlemen from the state of Michigan who are absolutely involved in the nonsense going on in this state in order to violate people's rights, which is a Constitution issue, honestly. So Jim Reiger is working on the Locus Standi investigation. I've had Scott Aughney on here and Beth. The plot thickens because Beth was sentenced to jail for in violation, from what I can see, of her First Amendment rights by some judge that basically said, "I'm going to make an example out of her." That is what's going on here. This is coercion, extortion, and threat going on in this nation. And Jim Reiger is going to be on first talking about what's going on up there because he is the chairman of the Onaway School District Board. And then I'm going to have Jim DeSana on, who is a state rep, talking about what's going on in Michigan. And he is absolutely aware of how much threat and coercion is going on in this state. And you know what? If we don't continue to talk about this and get behind these people who are on the front lines of being threatened, coerced, removed, silenced, and such, well, what good are we at this point in time? We need to get behind people who are being discriminated against, truly discriminated against, and who are having their constitutional or their rights given by God, guaranteed by the Constitution. We need to back this because this is what it's all about, guys. We're here to fight for each other's rights. That's what it means to be an American, not a Democrat, not a Republican, not any of these little protected classes who want to set themselves up as special interests, but as Americans who defend each other as family, and we do it for God, family, and country. So with that said, I'm going to bring Jim on right now, and let's talk about what's going up there in Onaway. Hey, Jim. Good morning. How are you?
Good. Good morning, Donna. Thank you for having me on.
Wonderful. I'd like you to introduce yourself a little bit, and let's get into what's going on up there in Onaway, because it's not Onaway is one scenario. This nonsense is going on all over this nation and this state, and it's a global crime syndicate, in my opinion. What's going on here? So let's talk about what's going on.
Yeah, I feel the same way as you do. I'm a fourth generation up here in Millersburg, Michigan. Born and raised here. My family is entrepreneurs. My dad had a big sawmill operation and a truck company. My mom had a grocery store and a restaurant. So we had a farm. I was on a tractor when I was 8 years old. Pretty much worked hard my whole life. Graduated from Onaway High in 91. Went straight from there to Great Lakes Maritime Academy in Traverse City. Graduated with a degree in marine engineering. Took a test through MARAD in Toledo, Ohio, and got my third assistant engineer's license. And I sailed on the Great Lakes for several years. Ended up with a chief engineer's license. Got married. My wife was in dental hygienist school. At that time, my brother had a little sawmill, single-man sawmill operation he was running. I have a twin brother, and the day my wife graduated from college, I quit sailing and started working with my brother, and we worked up from a little small sawmill operation. We had two sawmills running 24 hours a day. We had trucks on the road, 28 employees. And we did that for several years. Ended up selling that, gave the rest of the equipment to my brother, and went into power line construction with a buddy of mine. I was a heavy equipment mechanic for him, and then I retired here in about 2017 and been trying to fight the battle here.
It's quite a battle going on too, and I really appreciate all you're doing to stand up for this nation as far as to fight these hard fights. And being the chairman of a school board for a district is a tough go, especially with the amount of Marxists that are in there trying to groom our children within the school systems. And if you stand up for anything that's righteous, you're going to be attacked. which is where we're at right now. So tell me what's going on, because you've also been working with Scott Aughney in the Locus Standi investigation. I've had Joanne Bacali and Sandy Kiesel on too, and some other wonderful patriots who have really been working for our elections to make sure that things are run free and fair, which the Marxists, the global crime syndicate, does not want us to do. And I really appreciate all the work you've put into this, and everybody that you're working with on those efforts. If you don't know what's happening with Locus Standi out there, everyone, I think it's a really great thing to look into and talk about selfless warriors out there. The people that are working with the Locus Standi stuff have come up against so much opposition, and nobody is willing to talk about this, which is the craziest thing to me, because it's a local fight. And it's a statewide fight, but it's also a local fight, is where it really focuses, and it needs to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. As far as the school board, in 2022, for November election, there ended up being 6 open seats for our school district. So a group of 6 of us got together, and we decided to run for school board. We're all like-minded people, and anyways, we did a little campaigning in that with the help of the Republican Party here in Presque Isle County, which I'm a member of, and Trucker Randy was helping us a little bit. And anyways, we ended up winning 5 of those 6 seats. One of the gals that was running with us, a couple of the people in the community she works for the federal government. They ended up threatening her with a Hatch Act violation, which was complete false. Anyways, they convinced her that she needed to back out, so she backed out of her seat. And then that seat ended up getting appointed by the ISD, fraudulently in my opinion, but and the person they put back in was one of the people that got voted out by the public in November, because they didn't.
So what you're saying is that they really completely disregarded the will of the people and put in the buddies that are in their little club up there to group, with this nonsense.
Correct, in my opinion, correct, because there was other people that was running for the seat that the ISD could have appointed, but they ended up appointing this other person, and they have been continually attacking us from day one, from the my very first board meeting, continually, and public comment. People have been attacking us, calling us bigots, racists, fascists, extremists. My favorite one is I'm a radical, right-wing, Christian, nationalist nut job. That's my favorite title. I was thinking about getting some T-shirts made for that, but we've had grievances charged on us from teachers that were complete faults, that were ended up getting all thrown out. I get constant ethics violations charged against me by certain people. We even had a person from Oregon file an ethics violation. I mean, I don't know how that's possible, but all faults. They can't. I think they're trying to get us all to quit. That's what they want. But the 4 of us that remain are really strong-minded and strong-willed, and that's not going to happen.
If you're doing the right thing, you're going to be attacked. And yeah. I hope you're taking names down of those people that are trying to intimidate and filing these false charges or grievances against you. Make sure you document this, because there's going to come a time where all of this is going to be thrown out in the light. And I think if somebody's trying to intimidate you, or through false charges, we all need to know who they are.
Yeah, and it's it finally boiled down to the person that got appointed, the one that the voters voted out. She is not a very nice person, in my opinion. Her and I do not see eye to eye at all on the board. But her daughter ended up filing recalls on the 4 of us back in November. We had to go before a hearing for the wording of the recall petition. to see if it could go through. Judge Stone, the county clerk, and the county treasurer were on that committee, the election committee, to decide if that could go through. So we all attended that hearing, and when it come to, they let the girl that filed the petition speak, and then when it came to our turn to defend ourselves, the judge just kept shutting us down continually. Judge Stone, he kept saying, nope, we don't want to hear the truth. We only want to hear facts. We're not here to determine if anything is true or not. We're only here to determine if the statements are factual. But one of the statements that was against myself and John Palmer, which is another school board member, was that we attended a Stand Up Michigan meeting back in September of 2022. Well, we weren't even board members at that time, so you can't recall a public official for something they did when they weren't a public official. And I tried to explain that, and I kept getting shut down. Well, anyways, the committee allowed the petition to go through, so we all had to appeal. And at our appeal hearing last week, we had Judge Gauthier, and he listened to what we had to say and read our appeal language, which we had a good person help us do that. But he sided with us that, you can't recall somebody for something that they did when they weren't a public official. And then the other person, some of the language he didn't agree with in that, so he threw ours out. On that Friday, he had a hearing in Cheboygan County for one of our other board members because she lives in Cheboygan County, and he decided to let hers happen. So her recall is going on right now. The girl that did the petitions is trying to get signatures. She needs 708 signatures from our school district so that to get her name on the ballot for recall. She's trying to do that for the May election. And then yesterday I get home, and in the mail is another recall notice from the same person, from the county clerk. Now they're trying to recall the three of us again, which I think is completely ridiculous. It's completely divided our community. Sounds
like harassment.
Oh yeah, terrible harassment, and it's completely divided our community. And the people that continue to attack us at our board meetings and at our retired school teachers and certain group of people, LGBTQ community attacks us constantly. One of the main reasons that girl tried to recall us, and she is on the news actually talking about it, is that we are anti-homosexual and we are Christians. That's the main reason that she used to recall.
That's what she's alleging.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what she's alleging. Yes.
So there's no equal representation. There's no due process under law. There's nothing. It's just basically labeling you as a lesser class of people for what you believe in, and that's the only reason.
Yes.
Yeah, that seems like that's happening all over the place, and they don't. The people that violate these rights, they don't even realize that this is not the issue. Isn't do I like you, popularity? Do I agree with you? It's, are you following the law? That's the core. That's the issue there. Is it, or are you just targeting people and using your opinions to silence others? And that sure looks like what's going on here. I don't really care if I agree or disagree with somebody on a lot of these issues, but are they following the law?
Correct. Yeah, and they're not. It's all, even the new recall language is all opinion. But we just decided we're not going to appeal this one if it goes through, because it's costs a lot of money and time. And if it gets on the ballot, it gets on the ballot. She's got to get 708 signatures for each one of us, and I say good luck on that. And then if we do get on the ballot, the people that voted us in the first time, I'm sure will come out and vote us again. But the thing is, it's a huge expense to the taxpayers in our district. It costs $20,000 to $40,000 that from what I understand, to get us on the ballot to recall us. But she doesn't care about that. what it costs the taxpayers.
It's really sad. That's really, really sad. So, what else is going on up there that you're seeing, or with the Locus Standi?
I'm not as familiar with the Locus Standi as like Scott Aughney. I have been helping him, and I know what he's up against there. In Montmorency County, there's some stuff that they're working on. I know that they had a little victory the other day. The judge is allowing it to continue, from what I understand, and against the county clerk. We have some issues with our county clerk. I know there's, I believe there's an attempt to get her recalled as well. There is another good person that's going to be running against her coming in November. Our county clerk, in my opinion, has tried to, back when we got elected, state law says 10 days to, you have to be notified within 10 days of the election that you won. And then you have only 10 days to take the oath to get your office. And we didn't know anything about that at the time. And one of the ladies that is a board member happened to be up at the school, and one of the other teachers said to her, when are you going to take your oath of office? You only have till tomorrow to do it. She said, what do you mean? Well, yeah, you only have till tomorrow to accept your oath of office or it gets thrown out. So she called me, and I called the rest of the people, and we went up there, and sure enough, so we called the county clerk while we were there at the office in the school, and the county clerk says, that's not my responsibility to send you guys notification. That's up to you to know that, and it's state law that she has to, within 10 days, notify us of that. So we almost all.
So she didn't even give you proper notice.
No.
And that's part of her job.
Part of our job, and she did the same thing to the Republican Party for I'm trying to think of what they call them that oversee the elections here, to appoint. And then she actually went out on her own and appointed somebody that wasn't even a Republican to fill that position.
Though a Republican got voted in.
Yeah.
Or was in that position. Well,
yeah.
This is really something that is honestly systemic. It's a systemic corruption in the state, because I'll tell you what happened to us. I found out that by chance that we owned a property that was got a notice that it was about to go into foreclosure. And we're like, foreclosure for what? And I mean, we don't owe any money on it. I mean, we owe it flat out and such. So we started looking into this, and it was for delinquent taxes. So we had we called and got in to try to find out what was happening here in little old Byron Center, Michigan. And they didn't see anything. They said, no, your taxes are all paid up. Everything is fine. So the next week I'm like, this doesn't smell right. There's something going on here. Crazy. So called again the next week, and the gal said, no, I don't see anything. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh my gosh, there is something there. And they never notified us. They never posted the property, nothing. And even the gal within the office was having a hard time finding it. Well, of course, we've got these developers and realtors and such on all these boards and such, and people that are in the community that I'm sure would love to get a hold of that property. And we've run up into adversity on this kind of stuff before, because I buy the land to kind of protect it so that they don't just slam little houses in or apartments in every square inch, because that's what they want to do. It's like their goal is to turn all of these townships and smaller town cities into like the 15-minute city model. That's what they really want. Cram as many people in, because man, we're increasing the tax base, we're increasing taxes. Well, you know what? If they actually were doing their job, it wouldn't increase the taxes per se, because the taxes would cover the expenses and not be a money-making organization. But the townships, municipalities, the counties, the state, they're money-making organizations, and it's all about putting the money and having control of it to put it into their pet projects or grant favors to their friends. And a lot of them, what they do is they grant favors to the developers or the people they want in place to further their agenda. And it's happening in the schools. We actually heard of one person in this area who took $20,000 for keeping the mask mandates in place. Somebody that's allegedly on a school administrator. Personally, it was told to us. I haven't been able to confirm this yet, but it was somebody close to the situation, so I haven't seen the paperwork. But I'm going to put it out there. I think it needs to be investigated. That person took $20,000 personally to keep the masks in place. This is the kind of crap that's going on in the schools. And when I see people who are just harassed and papered to death to remove them from the seats, such as yourself, we have a problem here, people. And before the people up there just decide to lay down, maybe they should start asking questions about the people who are actually harassing you. Find out who these people are, what their connections are. I know I do a lot of background checks on people where I'll look into their backgrounds, I'll look into their connections, I'll see who else they're, other organizations they're involved in and such. And all of a sudden you get a picture of the fact that there's a very organized, there's a very, very much an organization going on. And it's like an organism. An organism is made up of cells. And there's cells all over the place that are working to destroy and silence the voices of certain people that they disagree with. And it's a color revolution that's going on right now, in my opinion. And, when you look at all the judges, the corrupt judges that took Soros money, that were backed by Soros and such, that the war was waged in the last, I don't know how many decades, in the judicial, the pathetic, the illegal, the rigged judicial branch that Department of Justice that is taking our nation back through their non-justice system right now, and it's really too bad. But what else is there? Anything positive going on in the school system up there? And what do the people think? Are the people in the area furious about this?
Yeah, the majority of the people are furious, but a lot of them remain silent. A lot of them have kids in the school.
Shame on them. They need to step up and back what's going on.
But they're afraid of retaliation from the, in my opinion, I think afraid for their kids.
Sure they are.
We had a parent that she's actually a school board member now. She ran with us, but we actually had a parent that questioned one of the teachers, wanted a copy of her lesson plans and her curriculum for current events, and they wouldn't give it to her. She kept coming to meetings. I want this curriculum. I want this book that they're reading. It was a book, a communist book from, I want to say his name was Shea. He was from Cuba, wrote a book on pretty much communist. I think it's called The Bicycle Chronicles, and they watched that movie as well. But she kept wanting copies of this, and they kept refusing to give it to her. Well, she ended up coming into school one day because she wanted to apply for a helper's position. In the superintendent at that time's office door was open, and she happened to walk by, and she heard her name mentioned. So she stopped and started listening, and they started bad-mouthing her, and they recorded it, or she recorded it on her phone. Well, they found out about this recording, and they called the cops, and she was arrested for eavesdropping.
You got to be kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you. They took her phone. They filed a PPO on her, banned her from the school property. She couldn't go see her kids' games, play games or anything. A real good Christian mother, good family. Actually, her husband is my cousin. But regardless of the fact, she had to get attorneys and to keep out of jail, and she went, finally got her day in court, and it happened to be Judge Gauthier again at that time, but he said, this is ridiculous what you are doing to this parent here, and dropped all the charges against her, and then she was allowed to get back on school, and that when she filed a lawsuit against the school for that, and then when she became a board member she didn't want to divide the community, with the lawsuit and all that. So she ended up graciously dropping her lawsuit against the school district, which personally, I don't think I would have. I would have kept, that poor girl has been through hell. I mean, really been through hell, been in the hospital because of it, It's terrible. It's just terrible what they do. And we're just a small community. We're at one school, from kindergarten right through high school. There's only 520 students in our school district.
But you're up in Cheboygan area, right?
Onaway School District, but yeah, up by Cheboygan area. Yep.
Well, I got to tell you what I saw when I was traveling the state that I'm very concerned of up there. I think that Michigan is such a hotbed of human trafficking and child trafficking.
I believe
And what I saw some things up in the Cheboygan area that I was very concerned about. And I think that we all should be aware of the fact that because we are a border state and they're dumping so many kids into this state. I found an article where 80 kids went missing from the border down the southern border, and they ended up under the care of Bethany Christian Services. No documentation, no nothing. And so if there were 80 kids that showed up there, how many more? My question is, and I don't know this, but how many more kids are disappearing and you never hear from them again? And when you look at what happened on Fox Island and the islands around Michigan, people think that Epstein Island is a one-off. It's not. Michigan has got a tremendous amount of human trafficking, child trafficking. And when I got up in the Cheboygan area, there were some things I saw up there that were a little concerning to me. And it's not just there; it's the whole state. I'm not going to single it out, but what I know is that when people that go after kids go to where kids are and where it's easy, and so I just have some questions, and you know what I mean. It's like I have a lot of questions. I think that when you see an agenda popping up in an area to remove something based on a cultural issue, not on the law, but a violation because they know that somebody's this or somebody's that. I mean, the tables could be turned on them too, and people could be removing them too. But when it's a very militant takeover type thing, because you're Christian or you're this or you're that, we can't have that in our schools. Right. Why don't you let the people decide?
Exactly. They allow we have to because of all the new laws and stuff, and I don't have no problem if you do what you want to do, but I don't think that it should be forced down students' throats, you know what I mean?
Where's the payback of any of this in the schools for the children? It's like this is a problem when you're pushing a social agenda of any type, which is sexuality based or I don't know, the gender nonsense, the race nonsense, all of this nonsense that's going on. All you're doing is stealing that time away from that child. Schools should have an outcome of, can they feed themselves? What's the investment we're putting into the kids in order to better their lives? What I see is exactly what happened in World War II, which is it's about the state, the children being wards of the state, yes. Not teaching them not to critically think, not to be able to think for themselves, but just go in as little drones and be able to do what they're told and not think and not have an opinion other than what's been force-fed down their throats. They should be questioning everything. They should be questioning you. They should be questioning me. They should be questioning the school system. They should be questioning the agenda and going down every single part so that they can indeed make up their minds for themselves.
Yeah, I agree. And when I was in school, and read on through, we never knew what the teacher's political background was or anything. We were taught history and math and science and English, which, that's, in my opinion, that's the way it should be. History has all been perverted now. They only teach what they want to for history. And I'm not saying that just for our school. I think that's, a lot of what has to be taught is mandated by the federal government and the state. That grooming, look at Whitmer right now is trying to get state-funded daycare, at the schools. And in my opinion, that's so that they can start grooming them right from when they're 3 and 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ridiculous. I don't know why these people want to destroy our country. There's only one United States, and there's a reason why everybody wants to come to the United States, and why they want to destroy that. I don't understand. I have a 17-year-old son, and I'm going to fight until my death for him, because I want him to have the life that I had. I was one of the fortunate ones to still be raised in the country when it had morals and fought for what was right. When people went to church on Sunday, they had dinner at the table in the evenings and discussed the day. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen anymore. And a lot of the parents, in my opinion, just send their kids to school and believe that the school should take care of their kids, and don't have any responsibility over their kids this day and age. That's another opinion of mine, but it's terrible what's happened to this country. It's terrible.
It really is. And, like you're speaking from the inside too, as somebody who stepped up to take a position just to try to help in the destruction that you're seeing, to stop it, and then you're targeted. But that goes on. I'm trying to find this
bicycle. I think
yeah,
it's called the Bicycle Chronicles. If I can, I know the one person has that book. I'll try to get that for you, and I'll forward it to you.
I'm seeing the rise and fall of and restoration of the kingdom of bicycles. I'm seeing Pegasus reborn. Romania's communist bicycle returns with oomph.
What was the name of the guy that was he was like second in command in Cuba there? Something Shea or
Shea. Yeah, let me see. Let me see if I can.
In this book was and this teacher went on her own and had a fundraiser to buy this book for the students, but the parents were not allowed to have a copy of it. And that's ridiculous. The parents are allowed to any curriculum that's up there at that school. You know what I mean?
The school, we pay their salaries.
Yeah.
They work for us, the teachers, the administration. But look at what's happened. They honestly have they flipped the table. They flipped it all on us. We're just supposed to. You are supposed to fund everything. It's a demand thing, an entitlement thing, and that's just really too bad.
Yeah, and a lot of things that come before the board are recommendations, and you don't even have really an option to be involved in it. You just have to vote on it because it has to be voted on for the school to function. It has to be passed. You don't have an option on it.
Well, I homeschooled my kids, and I was done with this. 30 years ago, I was done with it and said, this is absolutely the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not going to teach my kids how to hate God. Yeah, and that's clear, because they have so jumped into this little snowflake culture where everything has to be perfect for our little babies. And if, the teacher says something, the kids pitch a fit, they can do whatever they want. And the teacher doesn't have the right to correct them. We've got to pander to these kids. And the parents want you to pander to their kids and such. It's like we're raising a generation of kids that are on their phones full time. They don't want to work. They don't want to talk to anybody who employs kids coming out of the school system. It's like the school systems, the government schools are an abysmal failure. If you give them a list of things to do, they'll follow the list. And if there's a dumpster fire 2 feet off of that list, they'll just sit there going, well, it's not my responsibility. I've got my list. Yeah. And they can't think, and they won't help. Man, I really want to see what you're talking about here.
Let me text.
Yeah, let's see what we have here.
She can tell me the exact name of it.
Yeah, Bicycle Chronicles I put in. And it's a book? Let me try Amazon here a minute.
No, it's a movie. I'm sorry.
Oh, a
It's
movie?
I can't remember the name of the book, but it's a movie. Um,
All right, let's see what comes up there. I'm getting everything but what they want us to look
yeah,
at.
I just texted the one. She might not be able to answer the text, but I will get it to you so you can research it. It's definitely a communism book. It talks about sex and all that stuff, and sex ed has to be taught. I mean, it's mandated every 2 years. It has to be taught. But thank God our school district.
Why? It's like, why? Why is this in the schools? We can't talk about civics. They don't talk about real history. They don't talk about the kids can't come out of school. They can't balance a checkbook. They have no actual skills.
They can't even read cursive.
They can't. Half of them can't
We're trying
read
to get
or write.
that. We're trying to get that on the curriculum right now. Cursive writing.
You know what? I heard that I'm really trying to find this here, guys. Let's see, bicyclechronicles.com, pre-war, post-war balloon tire bicycle restoration. It's got everything but this on here. This is crazy. I heard there's actually people that do handwriting. They teach handwriting online, and they talk about the benefits of mind-hand coordination with cursive writing rather than just writing on a computer.
Yeah.
It actually is something that stimulates brain function.
Yeah, we're working. Excuse me, or I apologize for interrupting you there. We're working on, which is a good with the superintendent as well. I'll say right now getting home ec back in.
Yes,
we're working on some CTE classes. One is nursing. Give the kids some options because college is just as corrupt and crooked as everything else anymore.
We need to go to the trades. I mean, you're a farmer. I've got a farm too. We've got 130 chickens and horses and such. In fact, I was at the barn this morning cleaning stalls before I got online, and which is one of my favorite things to do is just go feed horses, take care of them, put them out and such. And you really have to work. You have to work. And the schools are set up to just have people go sit in the coffee shop and talk and conflate the idea. Some of that's good, but we've let the work ethic of this nation just go completely to hell. And exactly. I like funding the trade schools rather than the indoctrination camps, the government schools and the colleges. Have you ever looked into how much money run through these colleges and how much the politicians put into them?
Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable.
And it's not one party, it's both of them.
We get attacked all the time for Hillsdale College, you know what I mean? And they've accused us. They still accuse us to this day of. They say we're going to shut down Onaway School District, fire everybody, and turn it into a charter school, and then reopen it. That's what we were accused of. That constantly accused of that.
That you wanted to do that? Is that what they said?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think that it's legally possible to shut down a public school and then fire everybody and turn it into a charter school. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense, but that's one of the things that they use to attack us constantly on.
Well, I think we should look this up just to make sure. I'm putting a little disclaimer in here, but I don't believe that it's guaranteed by the Constitution, public education.
No.
And so all of this nonsense that's out there and what they've added to the authority and what is necessary really needs to be looked at to see if it actually exists. There's a case out there called Norton versus Shelby County that it says that if it's not specifically stated in the Constitution, none of these 3-letter agencies actually exist. They only exist because we agree with them. So what are they even doing? This is actually pretty much a DEA, MEA, looks to me like usurpation of the Constitution, and it's become a threat and extortion group. If they don't like what you say, we're going to threaten your kids, we're going to take your kids away, then they call in Homeland Security or Health and Human Services, HHS, and threaten to take the kids away because mom and dad didn't fall in line. How dare they? How dare they think that those kids belong to them? The kids belong to the state, so how dare they say these things? There's a wonderful woman. Her name is Tara Rodas, and she's a whistleblower that came forward. She worked in HHS about the human trafficking going on within those organizations, HHS, CPS, all of them. How many rapes have gone on through the UN, and it's the crazy amounts of what's going on in these government funded agencies of actual crimes being committed is just incredible.
I agree with you. Motorcycle Diaries is the name of that.
Motorcycle Diaries. Okay. Well, we were close. Let's see what we got here.
That's a movie. Now I'm trying to get the name of the book, but it's sad. It's really sad. I fear for our country. There is good people yet. My boy is one of them. You know what I mean? His buddies, they see what's going on. They don't take the blue pill. They're not sheep. They have minds of their own. They don't need to be told this is what you're going to do today and this is the way you're going to think. And I didn't raise any liberals. Let's just put it that way.
Here's every outdoor brand. Think I want to look like this.
We gotta get the ad off here. Let's see what happens. All right, I think I can pull it up. Let's see if it'll pull it up for me a minute. We gotta get past all the prostate commercials and such that go on.
Yeah.
It's like Google throw this stuff on. Hang on a minute. Real news for real people by real people at the kitchen table, people. This is what we got here. All right, let's see if we can play this. I want to see what they're talking about. And this is what they showed in school.
Yes. And this is what the one parent went to jail fighting for this, or to get this copy of this. Yeah, there he is, Che Guevara.
Spoiled youths of the affluent West is the ones that are protesting. So they showed this movie in school. To what age?
I want to say 11th and 12th graders. And it was kind of done secretly, like I said, because they wouldn't let the parents know anything about it. This same teacher, has Ruth Bader Ginsburg posters in her school, in her classroom, and
who was advocating pedophilia.
Yep, I've had to actually have superintendent go to have her remove some flags that she had in there. She told, going on during the 2020 election, how Trump was, a terrible person, and if anybody votes for Trump, you're no better than Hitler. she had a conversation. One of the kids tried to stand up, and she said, "Sit down because your white privilege is showing." I mean,
to a kid?
Yeah. This is our civics teacher.
Oh my God. What flags did she have flying in the classroom?
Communist flags,
Such as?
I can't remember the exact, because this was a couple years ago, or just when I had first started. Just kind of supporting communism and socialism. And that book, the book is called Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You.
Stamped, huh?
Yeah. She pretty much has that opinion that if you're white, especially a white male, you're pretty much an evil. You're evil.
So is she one of those? What interesting. So Stamped. Here we go. A Remix National Award. Oh, this is a book. Let's see what we got here. Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You, a remix of the National Book Award winning Stamped from the Beginning hardcover. The construct of race has always been used to gain power, to create dynamics that remain separate and silent. The remarkable reimagining of Dr. Ibram X. Kennedy's National Book Award-winning Stamp from the Beginning reveals the history of racist ideas in America and inspires hope for an anti-racist future. It takes you on a race journey from then to now, shows you why we feel and why we feel, how we feel, and why the poison of racism lingers. It also provides that while racist ideas have always been easy to fabricate and distribute, they can also be discredited. Interesting. So,
yeah, and if it was such, why wouldn't they allow the parents to get a copy of that? I mean, the parent, like I said, the parents have every right to get any instruction that those kids get. I mean, that's law. They are allowed to any material that school teaches.
How did they justify this?
Well, there was really no supervision, in my opinion.
Did the
school?
Did the school principal and everybody else just say shut up and go home, parents, kind of?
Pretty much, yeah. And like I said, everybody's too afraid to stand up to anything in this community, which is unfortunate. I'm sure I'm going to take all kinds of flack for this because I'm sure they're watching this right now.
Good, you guys can watch it because you know what? You don't own those kids. The kids are actually the parents' responsibility, not yours. And you are employees of the people of Michigan. You are not our lordful overlords and masters. You do not know better than anybody else. You are not privileged to have all of the answers. The parents get to make the decisions for their children. You do not own, the state does not own the kids. If you think they do, if you think the state owns the kids and knows best for everyone's kids, guess what? You just bought into Hitler's philosophy and the Communist Manifesto of the kids are the property of the state. You might be part of the problem. You might be the problem.
Exactly. We have to have an excuse to get you have to give an excuse to have your kid gone from school for the day. That's my son. It's their kids. I don't have to give any reason whatsoever if I want to keep my son home from school for a day. I mean, that's ridiculous. When I was a kid, when we were farming I stayed out of school and helped my dad farm. I get letter, my boys missed like 10 days this year. I get a letter in the mail that he might lose all of his credit if he misses any more days. Some of the days he's sick. I mean, it's ridiculous.
That's too bad. It really is too bad.
I think it all boils down to the head count for their money every year. That's
sure does. There you go. You said it. You got right down to it because it's all about the money. It's not. This has never been about the kids in the schools. When you have people that strike in a situation like that because they're unionized and such, where do the kids come first in that? They seem to me, it's a real problem. I mean, we should be able to negotiate things if we need to, but I don't know. I'm not a fan of how things are being run at all in the school systems. And like you said, what do they get in a year? What do they get a year for kids in school right now? I know if they get a disability, so they can label our kids and put them on some sort of drugs because they can't manage them, because they have no skill or they don't want to. I mean, what do they get for a kid that they can say, oh, he's ADHD? Well, maybe put him outside and let him play for a while.
Yeah, I believe this. Don't quote me on this because I'm not looking at the budget, but I believe it's like $9,500 per pupil that they get from the state.
And then what happens if they get like a learning disability or
I
something?
know they get more than that. Plus, each student now that has a disability gets their own teacher. I don't understand that. There's more teachers than kids, pretty much.
Have you noticed all the building that went on with the COVID money? I don't know if you know this, but everywhere you go, the schools are having, where our families are suffering right now with all of the inflation and such that's going on. But by golly, they've got money to build schools. Everywhere I look, there's additions. There's all of these building projects going on in the school systems. And I have to ask some questions here. That why is all this going on? And
Bonuses.
they did a lot of upgrades to the HVAC system to be able to distribute, disinfectants and such. Really, how do we know what they're actually spraying on the kids in there? It seems pretty concerning.
Yeah, and bonuses. A lot of that money went to wages, bonuses.
Yeah, how can you give bonuses and wages to a school to shut down?
Right, there's a pie chart. If you Google COVID money for Michigan schools, it comes up with there's a pie chart that shows what percentage of each has to be distributed, and that has to be done legally that way. The majority of it is for wages, if you look at it. And a lot of them taught from home.
Let's see, Michigan School. Let's see if this is it.
Yeah.
How much?
Everybody deserves to make a good wage. I'm not saying that at all. I have a sister is a retired school teacher. And she doesn't go around to their way of thinking either. She's an independent thinker. Doesn't need to be told this is who you're going to vote for and this is what you're going to teach. Through the unions, we get threatened. We even got threatened by the AFT, the American Federations of Teachers Union, that if the 4 of you new board members don't come around to our way of thinking, there will be a huge lawsuit against you individually. That comes from one of the leaders of the AFT.
Wow.
Are you finding that chart?
Yeah, I'm finding one that's Michigan budget spending. There's total spending, school spending 2001. I noticed that when it comes to, let's see, total school spending 2001, I'm not finding anything more current than that. What I did notice is that, let's see if I can get let's just go to 2002 because they stopped keeping a lot of statistics in a lot of the agencies starting in about 2002. Nothing's been upgraded.
This would have been, I Googled, I don't remember how I did it, but for COVID, like COVID money or ESSER funds for school districts, which would have been in like 21, 22.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did get some, with that ESSER money, we did get a nice new PA system for our school, which we desperately needed for security reasons. We just voted that in our last meeting, so that'll be put in. They did do some upgrades.
Let's see. We got future ed, local education. There's a lot, but I'm not seeing specific.
What I worry about is Whitmer blew the budget there this year. The school's got $24 billion to use. So it was the biggest school budget ever in the state of Michigan. So now what's going to happen next year? That money's all gone. The ESSER money is all gone. Budgets were made off of that ESSER money in this new budget that the state from Whitmer, but that's all gone now. What's going to happen next year when they can't have that $24 million? What's going to happen to our public school systems?
Well, what was really disturbing to me is when I looked at the distribution of COVID money, and then all of a sudden, all of these building projects started in all of the school systems. I mean, I heard that there was of all the schools in the Muskegon area, there was one that got like $36 million, and the rest of them had like $1 million a piece for shutting down.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the rest of us that run businesses would go, why are you getting paid to shut down in the millions of dollars? And they had a big building project there for, I think it was $32 million building project. So all the COVID money just went to, okay, we've got this money, we have to spend it. And so then, we got to spend every dime. We've got to claw every dime to what we can, and then build our little castles. Well, what is one of the biggest misleading things in this state is that everybody thinks that Detroit is a big city. It's not anymore. There's 500,000 residents that are reported in Detroit. Grand Rapids during COVID had like 1.2 in the Grand Rapids area. The money that went to Detroit was about $40 million. The money that went to Grand Rapids, which is more than twice the size, was about $1.2 million. So we're talking about utilizing the school systems as a money laundering process for the state. You can look at what's gone through the universities too, and I want to talk about that at some point in time. I saw I think it was $150 million that went to U of M, and who and how that money got there was kind of crazy, because this is happening all over the place. We're talking about dollars that most people can't even imagine, and that the institutions, the foundations and institutions are running through. You look at what's happening in Ukraine. How many billion dollars there was? $300 billion going to Ukraine. Ridiculous. And we are just the slave class to them. Just keep working. Shut up. You don't need to worry about the kids, because they want the kids. They want control of everything. We're supposed to shut up and just fall in line and pay attention. No, just so you know, it's like they need us. We don't need them.
Exactly. And then all that money gets funneled back to the Bidens and the Clintons and the whole gang there. It's ridiculous, and nothing happens.
Nothing happens. Yep. And their little minions that they put in place. I really believe that most of the people that get in office are there through selection instead of election.
I agree with you. Look at the Epstein Island and all that, and the pedophilia and all that. And that list came out, but nobody's been arrested, charged with anything
that we know of yet.
Yeah, that we know of.
Yeah. I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and
I think so,
and I really do think that certainly God is operational all the time.
God wins in the end, and I take great comfort in that.
Yeah. Well, I really want to thank you for standing strong through all this harassment up there on the school board. And if anybody wants to talk to me about it, go ahead and call me about it. And if you're being harassed, or if you're being harassed up there in Onaway and such, let's throw it out there. Let's talk about which teachers are actually threatening you and filing these fake charges. I think it needs to be talked about, because you know what? When good people are silent, bad things happen.
Exactly.
And if they know that there's going to be some pushback for bad behavior, I mean, the evil happens in the shadows. It doesn't dare to stick its head out in the light.
No,
and if people see what they're doing, if you want to put it out there, I think we put it out there, just like the judge that put Beth in jail for speaking to someone about common law. Why is that? Why was that an offense? Why did he make an example out of her, violating her First Amendment? You don't have to, Judge. You don't have to, agree with what Beth says. It's not for you to agree or disagree with what she says. She has First Amendment rights to say what's ever on her mind. Mm-hmm. And just because somebody disagrees with it or thinks that there's a reason to shut her up, I mean, it seems to me like that's a violation of the Constitution, which last time I checked, I think that goes under treason. And that is a violation. If they're tried for that looks like something that could fall under the treason category.
I agree. And thank you very much for having me, and God bless you and all that you do, and keep up the good fight, and keep in touch.
Thank you. And if you need a voice again, if they come after you again, to threaten you again, come back on. I'll put you back on. You just talk about it, and let's lay some names out there of the people that are behind this. And because if they want to fight, give it to them, and but make it public enough that they know if they bite on, they better have something. If they don't, there's going to be some pushback there.
All right. Thank you very much.
Throw it out in the open. Well, thanks a lot, Jim. I appreciate you coming on today, and have a great day. I'll be right back with our next guest, and that's a state rep, Jim DeSana. We'll be right back. Welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and I want to bring my next guest on our second hour here today. It is State Rep Jim DeSana. How you doing, Jim?
Good, great, Donna. Good morning. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
I got to tell everybody that of all the people that I've spoken to, you are a shining example of someone who is not afraid to speak the truth and stand up for we the people from what I've seen. And I appreciate everything that you're doing, because I know you're getting a lot of pushback.
Yeah, thank you. And I wish that people inside of Lansing felt as good about what I'm saying as the people outside of Lansing. But I think there's some people that would like to duct tape my mouth in Lansing.
Well, that's why I like you so much, and you wrote something this morning. I'm going to bring this up a minute, and you've got you had a nice statement. Would you like to read that statement of what's going on? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm running for governor of the state of Michigan. I was told flat out, you don't understand the way that it works here. When you get to Lansing, they're going to bring you down in the basement and tell you how it works. I'm like, really? Good luck with that. Mm-hmm. And, because anyone that would try to do that to me, I would have had them arrested on the spot for threat and coercion. And, they were like, you don't understand how it works. They're going to tell you what you have to do and how you have to do it. No, that's not how the game is played in America. So read your statement if you would, and let's go ahead and talk about what's really going on in the state of Michigan.
Absolutely. And when somebody says you don't understand, usually they've got something to hide.
You bet.
Truly, because you can tell people what's going on in a very brief couple of minutes. I can tell you exactly what's going on. And if you trust me, I can prove to you that it's going on. So here we go. If by this point you haven't gotten a true sense out there that something is deeply wrong with our state and our state legislature and the way it is operating, then I have to conclude you're either looking the other way or you're part of the corrupt system. From the speaker vote and the punishment of those who voted against the speaker, to the constant threat of losing your entire staff, to being threatened with losing your legislative allotment, and I'll explain later what that is. The system is ripe for controlling members and dissuading them from true reform. When you look at the legacy of our Republican leadership, it is a shameful legacy of brushes with the law, investigations, and convictions, from Speaker Rick Johnson to Speaker Lee Chatfield to Speaker Jason Wentworth. The Dems have total control of our state. Right? We're talking about Republicans a little bit here this morning, but the Dems have total control of our state to a large degree because of the failures of the Republican members of the House to root out corruption and reform itself into a body fighting for less government and more freedom. The corporate elites and oligarchs don't want this system to be done away with, for they have benefited tremendously from the corruption within this system. The system is propped up by the government money these corporate elites have been given by our state and federal government. and the income they have gained from the friendly laws the corrupt system has passed on their behalf, and the income on their behalf, their political donations and dark money are well spent on pliable individuals who will readily conform and help to elect as leaders the kind of politicians who are open for business and will help protect this corrupt system it will help protect this system from being completely dismantled. That's what I would like to see, is to have it just start over. So here's some examples. Or here's the structures that people will wonder, well, how does this work? So the political structures that help prop up this corporate system, this corrupt system, is number one, a corporate welfare system in the billions of dollars that works to ensure future giveaways from the legislature and thus the political campaign donations flowing back to keep the system alive. Number two is a horribly corrupt practice of controlling legislative staffers and threatening to withhold legislative office holder dollar allotments based on free speech and or a lack of compliance on our part within the corrupt system. Number three is an earmark system that creates pork barrel spending for those who have signed into the corrupt system and will vote for these expenditures. Number four is the nature of our full-time legislature and the backdoor dealing that places moneyed special interest groups above the interests of the people and of working families and taxpayers. Number five is the cooperation of mainstream media outlets who have very little interest in exposing these corrupt practices. Number six is the leadership structure in both parties that ostracizes, threatens, and excludes idealistic members who come here to truly try to reform the system. Number seven is a severely gerrymandered districting system set up under the guise of independence, but is truly rigged to minimize constitutional conservatism, as evidenced by the fact that 6 to 7 of the most conservative districts in the state of Michigan are represented by very liberal Republicans. What I would like to add to this is these budgets, $82 billion, the budgets that we have passed, and I mean the dollar numbers, people can't wrap their mind around it a lot. But just think about 82 billion, the power of controlling $82 billion and the corruption that could result from that. And these budgets have been passed by Democrats and Republicans. We as Republicans need to stand up. And unfortunately, we do not have control of any body in the state right now. We don't have control of the House. We are tied right now. But we need to stand up and say, we will not pass this budget. And if you look at 2024, unfortunately, the Dems could have passed the budget all by themselves. We did give them 5 votes for the budget. And if you look at what those 5 members that voted, what they got in their districts, it was the pork barrel spending that I'm talking about. So
who was it that voted with them?
There were 5 state reps that voted. Gina Johnson, you know what? I've got to go back before I start naming names. I've got to go back and refresh my memory of the 5 that voted. I believe it. I don't want to put a name in there that by mistake. I've got 54 colleagues, and I'm not trying to give them undue attention. I'll let the people come out and I'll let the people speak for their about their actions. I just want to say that Republicans have voted for these budgets year in and year out. Look at the last 20 years. We've gone from mid $30 billion to $82 billion in the state of Michigan. This is a liberal's dream, Donna, to be able to have massive inflation, no adjustment to the tax structures, and great revenues coming in from this inflation because everything's inflated now. Property values are inflated. Sales taxes are inflated. Income taxes are inflated, right? You had to get a raise to pay for these horribly expensive goods that Joe Biden has made so expensive. And your income now, you're paying more percentage-wise in income taxes. You're paying more percentage-wise in sales taxes. It's a boon for gas taxes because when gas goes up to $4 a gallon, the sales tax on gas is based on a percentage. So right now, we have a lot of revenue coming in the state of Michigan. relative, it's a relative term, right? We would say, what's a lot? $82 billion is a lot of money. We do not have an extreme difficulty right now paying for most of what we are funding as a government, but it's coming. Trust me, the collapse is coming. People say, well, Jim, you're all doom and gloom. I am very positive and very bullish on Michigan. I'm just wondering, when are people going to wake up? When are people going to realize what's been done to them and what is being actively done to them by your state? And when are they going to throw these people out of the legislature and get true reform within the state of Michigan?
Well, and you know, to your point, it's like we're going to have a crash. There's absolutely no way, you know, doom and gloom or reality. I mean, I would rather know that there's a problem than run and hide from it, and get a plan here, because I think I'm finding who voted for. I'm looking for that right now. We absolutely have to find 5 Republicans, and they're not listing it. We'll find them. We need to find solutions to the problem, and I'm with you. I think we need to have a clean house, top to bottom. And I can't stress it enough to everyone out there, is that we're going to have to pay the piper for their bad decisions and their decisions to sell this nation out piece by piece. There's no other way out of this than a crash. And everything I've seen is going to make 1929 look like child's play. And if you think it's not coming, I'm sorry, but I think it's going to catch everybody completely unaware of what that could look like. And with a little preparation, we can make it easier. It's not going to be easy for anyone when it happens. It's going to happen. It is. And so I think you're a realist, and I don't think you're doom and gloom. I think you're a realist.
I think that I use the word unsustainable a lot. Giving free lunches and free breakfasts to the children of millionaires is unsustainable. So we've gone from feeling a genuine need to feed kids at school to just saying, let's feed everybody. We talk about government out of control. I can afford to send my kids to school with the sandwich and with their lunch. I don't need government money to help. But you know what? People are now saying, well, the government is paying for this, so I might as well take the free perk. That's unsustainable. Free pre-K for everybody is unsustainable. Even our trajectory, if you look at our demographic trajectory in Michigan, we could have a whole nother discussion on demographic trajectory. It's not good. And people might say, well, Jim, they're going to let millions and millions of people across the border. We're going to be fine. We're going to have all kinds of immigrants coming to Michigan and coming to all over the United States that are going to bolster our demographic decline. I beg to differ, and I can go into great detail as to how that is going to make us all much poorer as Americans and as taxpayers. I will say one other thing I want to say. So people would say, how does this corruption, what do you see when you have votes and you see that your odds are long in gaining true reform? So only 8 members of the state house signed the articles of impeachment against Dana Nessel. The other 56 wouldn't touch it. Only 8 members of the state house Republican caucus voted against Speaker Joe Tate, the other party's leader. Why would I vote for the antithesis of my political beliefs, including my belief in the sanctity of life, including my belief in the traditional marriage? Why would I vote for a person on the other side that's going to lead the effort against me? It's like voting against myself. It makes no sense. Only 12 or 13 Republican members signed the pledge to keep males out of female bathrooms. Very small number. In fact, the protest that we did in Vicksburg, Michigan, was in our leader's district, and he refused to come, refused to speak, refused to even acknowledge that we were going there to speak at Vicksburg High School about this problem. Only 8 to 9 members would sign a bill banning cell towers on school property, our issue we talked about earlier. Less than 10 Republicans will support a bill proposing a part-time legislature. Does this tell you why we need to reform our Republican party first, to be strong enough to go out and have a strong message to the people. The people are saying, we don't believe and trust you that you're going to do anything different than what the Dems are doing. You're just as bad. You're just waiting for Jim, you're just waiting for your $10 million, $20 million pork barrel project in your district, and you're going to sign on to that budget. I just know it. And it's very difficult for me, but I'm going to tell you, I am not going to vote for an unconstitutional project of taxpayer money to pay for something that private industry and or the community should pay for themselves. I believe that the government keeps up the roads and bridges. We defend our country and we defend our state, police and fire, right? After that, I think everything is up for grabs. I really do. I mean, people would say, wow, Jim, that's crazy.
You're right.
Everything else is up for debate. That can be done by a private entity or a public-private partnership that our founding fathers envisioned our country being. And we're so far from the vision of our founding fathers. They would not recognize America. They would not recognize the state of Michigan. They'd be like, you're funding all these things. You're funding all these private entities. You're funding all of these pork barrel projects. The people are not free anymore. I mean, we need income tax reform. We need property tax reform. People are really hurting out there. And I think that when people say, gosh, Jim, you're Chicken Little, you're saying the sky is falling. I'm in the real world. I agree with you, Donna. I'm a realist. I know people are losing their homes because property taxes are too expensive to pay. I knock on doors and I say, hi, I'm Jim DeSana. I'm running for state rep. And they're like, well, we would love to stay here in this house, but we're going to be selling within the next 5 years if we can, because we're paying $10,000 a year in property taxes.
Well, property taxes are unconstitutional.
I agree.
And they should be repealed, because that makes everyone a leaseholder to the state.
I am posting all the time that we are just renters and the government is our landlord. I am 100% on board with Axe My Tax. I believe that we need to eliminate property taxes. They are not constitutional. You cannot charge somebody to live on their private property. I've been a private property activist my entire life. People's like, what are you going to do, Jim? How are you going to pay for everything? I'm like, well, I got some places I can start cutting if you give me the axe. I'd love to have the opportunity to cut back government. I'd start with our higher education system. Why can't higher education be privatized, right? Why do we need to fund and subsidize these woke universities who are teaching garbage anyway, and let them subject themselves to the private marketplace? I wonder how many of them, absent government money and absent subsidies from the federal government, would survive with what they're teaching. I really wonder.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Axe My Tax, because I don't like the way that it's structured, but we need to abolish property taxes as they are. I don't think that it's a well thought out plan.
We're going to need a constitutional amendment, though.
We're going to need to do something, but I don't think that Axe My Tax is the answer. But it's at least bringing awareness forward to the fact that property tax is illegal. It is unconstitutional, and it should not be. I mean, President Trump had the right direction when he was working with it. He understood how tariffs worked and used the tariffing process really, really well, and truly set us up for a total redo of the income tax structure, which is also illegal, the way that they're taxing people. And I really don't think that people understand that you're at a 70% tax rate, every single person in the state of Michigan, with the amount of taxes. That means that you're working until about October in order to pay taxes in the state, because of all of the discretionary taxes and the gas tax and all of the add-on taxes.
Sales taxes.
Yes, and the city taxes, and it's incredible. And the reason being is that they just keep creating this bigger and bigger and bigger monster, which requires more government to oversee their plans. And then the other thing I want to say that you brought up, because I agree with most of what you say, I really do, but I have a real problem with the private public partnerships, because that's the way they're taking over this nation, through regulation, in my opinion. And I've seen this happen over and over. When you have taxpayer dollars go to an organization to pay for what they're doing, and then all of a sudden the organization either copyrights it or patents it, that has been paid for by the taxpayer.
I guess
They
what I
should
was
have
referring-
no
yeah.
rights to that.
I guess
And
what I was referring to with that would be, for instance, charter schools. Charter schools are like a public-private partnership. They're a private entity funded by your tax dollars to educate children, and they're only accountable to their customers. In other words, charter schools don't have any guaranteed students. They'd close tomorrow if everybody chose not to go there, right? So the government gives you a grant of $10,000 to take to that charter school to educate your child. That's what I kind of meant about a public-private partnership. Now, would I love to see what Iowa has? Absolutely. Iowa basically says the dollars follow the child.
I love that.
Public-private partnerships in the corporate realm? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We were talking about education, and so your tax dollars going for a private entity or something that a private business can do. No, that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring more to a school that says we will accept tax dollars, a college that says we will accept a grant that it flows with the student, that somehow society says that education is a public good. All right. We may debate about all the little intricacies of that, but if a private entity would like to participate in that, I'm generally in favor of that. I don't see a lot of problems with that. However, where would I like to get to ultimately? This is a process where it's going to be difficult to change
It's
things.
incremental.
It is. We need to get to where people, it's just like healthcare. We could talk a whole hour about healthcare. Government should not be involved in healthcare, period. Not at all. Not one bit. We should have insurance. And if the government wants to say, okay, everybody should carry catastrophic insurance or highly encourage it, and if somebody doesn't want to buy insurance at all, I'm okay with that. Our society is probably still going to try to save their life if they're in a catastrophic situation. But the government should not cop out and say, well, because some people won't participate in the system, we need to mandate that you all have to participate. That is unconstitutional. I can't believe our Supreme Court stood up for Obamacare. And Donna, here again, going back to our problem in our own house, we had, if you look up the vote, we had between 20 and 25 Republicans vote for Obamacare in Michigan. People are like, what? People are not, everybody's paying attention. When we instituted Obamacare in Michigan that will now have to be reversed by a future governor and a future legislature. And it will be hard to reverse because we will need all three bodies. We're going to need the Senate, the House, and we're going to have a Republican governor, and to reverse these Obamacare mandates that we just passed in 2023. So there's a lot we can talk about, and we can get really deep in the weeds. But what I'd like to say is, if you think of the big picture, if you are not electing freedom and liberty conservatives, constitutional conservatives that want to strictly adhere to the Constitution, you are going to be in a place that's going to be very difficult to defend, because they're always going to say, well, I really think we need to tax people for this, or I really think we need to tax people for that. I agree with you. Income taxes and property taxes should be done away with. I'm okay with sales taxes. When you transact, if you buy a car, if you buy a large ticket item, you're going to pay for that transaction. But I think we have to start with scaling back government first. People say, well, how are we going to pay for our government? I'm like, we shouldn't be paying for the government we're paying for now. So don't say that you need to replace all these taxes. We don't need to replace them. We do not need all these agencies. We don't need a State Department of Education. Now, people say,
boom, you had it right there.
They're like, it's in our Constitution. One time I was sitting down for lunch and I said, what does our Constitution say we have to do about our State Department of Education and our higher education institutions that are guaranteed in our Constitution? He took $1 out of his wallet and he handed me the $1. He said, there, you're funded. He says, what does the Constitution say? How much we have to fund them? Just says we have to fund them. I'm like, okay, let's give them $1 and tell them good luck. And my ultimate goal would be to take that out of our Constitution. We should not be, our state and our government should not be involved in education. That should be parents and the community, your local community.
think about this. Think about if you were able to do it like, and I'm not advocating always, the little house on the prairie method, but it kind of worked, the one room schoolhouse or the homeschooling. I mean, I homeschooled my kids. By the time you go through it with each age, each of those ages is getting that curriculum or that subject matter 3, 4, 5 times. As they grow up, instead of all the nonsense that's in the schools. And I kind of like the idea of funding more trade schools, because our workforce in Michigan, it sucks. It would have to improve just to suck at this point in time. We don't have enough plumbers. We don't have enough mechanics. We don't have boiler experts. We don't have roofers. We do not have enough people that just want to go to work with their hands, because the school system has there's 3 kinds of learners out there. You've got the visual, the audio, and auditory, and the kinesthetic learners. Well, schools and most teachers are visual learners. And so you get to the kinesthetic learners, or the people that want to work with their hands, and they fall through the cracks. And I think we should be funding trade schools, because look at this. You get somebody that goes to the college for one of the dumbest curriculums that I can think of is gender studies. I'm sorry. It's like, any of us who are married, I know what guys are like. I'm married to a man. I'm not confused. I'm a woman. He's a guy. There's no confusion here happening whatsoever. And the differences behind us, it's pretty obvious, right? Mm-hmm. But gender studies, and they get out of school with making like maybe $30,000. And this has been sold to the university as a profession, but they're never going to get, unless they play ball with a government agency of some sort. So the government is literally building their army of recruits in these programs. And so let's just say you get out of school with $30,000 and you've got $300,000 worth of debt. How are they ever going to pay for that? In my opinion, it's the fault of the universities, because they're selling something that's unrealistic.
How about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Oh my gosh.
And I am the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion for my school district, let's say. I'm like, your job doesn't need to exist. How about the director of excellence and merit? Well, we don't need that, because that's every teacher in the classroom, ideally, right? I am the director of excellence and merit. You work hard in this classroom, you are going to get places. And I totally agree with you. Learning, I have a son who's more of a kinesthetic learner, and teaching kids at a very early age skills. I mean, you can't imagine how many kids today, and somebody will say, well, Jim, kids don't need to swing a hammer. They don't need to know how to use a screw gun. I'm like, there's still a lot of practical applications out there in our world where you need to put something together, or you need to fix something, or you need to saw and cut. And like you said, plumbers, electricians, pipe fitters, welders, not to say that they don't still need the basics, a good classical curriculum, and then branching off into good skill learning would be a fantastic way to solve this problem. But it's even deeper than that, Donna. I mean,
it's truly deeper.
It's intentional by our government to deny our society the proper skills, the people with the proper skills, because it fuels their excuse of saying we need millions upon millions of people to cross our border every year. And then we need to go to robots. We need to eliminate people. I can't think of anything that's more offensive to me than eliminating people and replacing a person's job with a robot. I know that we are all about efficiency, but this whole AI thing, that's a whole nother subject. But plumbers, electricians, we can't find enough of them. What are we doing to our young people that we're killing the incentive to work? We are discouraging them. And this is what I'm talking about that's unsustainable. When you are having to pay exorbitant rates, hugely exorbitant rates to fix something, it's only a matter of time before another state or another part of our country that knows how to do it right says, move to Texas, move to Florida. We know how to build houses, and we can build you a house at half the cost it costs in Michigan. And we've done this to ourselves. We've killed the incentive to work. Government is handing out way too many perks and special benefits for absolutely nothing. Why, right? I know
no return on investment for anything. None of us would invest in these things because there's no return to us. It's it seems to me like a lot of what's going on is really teaching people to live in the theoretical world instead of the real world. We'll go back to that again, to disconnect from the world. I would love to see everybody getting out of college or getting out of high school with a skill that they can actually provide for themselves, and have a skill that they can make a job or they can do something with their hands. And I've had so many kids, and I'm going to call them kids because I'm 60 years old, that were like 18 years old, young adults, that have come to me and said, we don't know how to be an adult. They're like, I'm so lost. I don't know what to do. And it is really heartbreaking because the adults in the society have abandoned our young people. It's not their fault that the schools suck. It's not their fault that they come out and they don't have basic skills of being able to talk because they're on their phones all the time texting. What have we done to this next generation? We have abandoned them. And it is so heartbreaking. I'm not blaming them. And I'm sure that it's taken that way by some people. But the root cause of the problem is that we have created in this nation a crisis among our young people by teaching them to be dependent on a system that exists to exterminate them.
We have not taught merit. We have not taught merit and excellence. We have dumbed down society to such a degree that no one aspires to achieve. I shouldn't say no one. But the
few.
General, few aspire to achieve. And if you look at our society now, those that really aspire and work hard and have good work ethic rise quickly because there's so few of them. And I agree with you, Donna. I talk to a lot of employers, and they will tell you, well, if we're looking for employees, it's certainly not coming out of the 19 and 20-year-old employee pool. They're just not there. We are going to have to go and find 40, 50, and 60-year-olds to come work for us after their initial career, because we can't find 20-year-olds that can work. They can't work 40 hours a week, let alone our parents and grandparents' generation who work 2 and 3 jobs to try to provide for a family, or would, work a job and then come home and do something else on the side, or work on weekends, or build homes on weekends. My grandparents' generation, my parents' generation, we can honestly say, I don't think there's anybody that could really honestly say they didn't work a lot harder and than the generation we're putting out right now. And they don't understand. They're like, wow, I really don't get this, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That's really, I wasn't expecting that. And
that's what they're being taught in the schools. And that's unfortunate because, if you leave your future in the hands of somebody else to determine what you're worth or what they're willing to pay you, it's hamstringing. It is so sad. And I think that you look at the amount of suicides happening. We've seen a couple of them. Couple of one of my son's friends. One of them committed suicide not too long ago, and the despair of the younger people who don't see a future because they don't have the tools in order to accomplish anything. This is the fault of our society and our school. I'm heartbroken over it.
Government. Yeah,
it's our government's failing to kill our children through disabling them. They're disabling our kids from having that power to live on their own, to have a voice, to do something, and taking away all these skills and just giving them as a mouthpiece for the communists, the Marxists that want to control, anyone that steps out against their power structure. It's very sad.
It's truly about socialism if you look at it, because universal basic income can't be too much farther behind, where they say, listen, these people don't have coping skills. They're going to try this compassionate play and say that we have so many people in our society that can't cope, can't make it. We can't just let them fall by the wayside, not be able to eat, not be able to have a roof over their head, not be able to have clothing, or not be able to have a cell phone, not be able to have a car. Like, wait a second, where does it stop? Where does it stop before we say, listen, the best thing for success and happiness in life is a job or a skill that you can somehow get remuneration for, whether it's maybe it is a graphic artist and you have a talent in graphic art, but whatever those skills were, we are killing the incentive to work. We are saying, listen, don't worry about it. This is going to be a society where you're going to have free healthcare, you're going to have free food, free education, free housing. Where do I stop?
And who pays for this? That's the thing of it is that they're not bringing up it's like it's this money train that they think that this money just comes from the government. The government is the problem. And
this is the problem with socialism and Marxism. And people think, well, it just hasn't been tried by the right people yet. They will create an economic system where they create fake wealth and they start distributing it, and the bill comes due, and eventually that's when it all collapses. And if you see the Soviet Union collapsed, we know, look at what's going on in China. Their whole economy is fake. They don't, people say the Chinese stock market dropped 15%. The Chinese stock market is all owned by the communist Chinese. So it's all fake. So
it's all nationalized. They own every single business, and China is owned by the state, which is the Communist Party.
And they're the biggest slaveholder in the world. They're the biggest slave labor operator in the world. No one will call them on it. Certainly China Joe won't call them on it.
And let's talk about the Falun Gong. I mean, they just execute these people for their organs and everything else.
And really, if you look at it, it isn't too far of a stretch, really, to say we're all going to become slaves of the state. I mean, some people might say, Jim, we're already there. And I'm probably going to have a hard time arguing back with them, because when you are getting taxed to the hilt, property, income, sales, excise taxes, everything, hotel tax, everything that you do, it gets to a certain point where you are paying for this overexpansive government that is then giving everything back, and eventually it all fails. I mean, people say, well, Jim, when does it fail? When does it fail? When it fails, the tipping point is when people, and we're getting there, when people lose their incentive to work and make income, and the wealthy class checks out and says, there's no reason for us to do this anymore. And you hear this drumbeat of the rich need to pay more of their fair share of taxes. And really, you should be extremely nervous. If you are a middle income person, they're not going after the rich. They're coming right after you. If you are if you are a working family making $100,000 a year, you're going to be taxed to the hilt over the next 10, 20 years. And I tell young people all the time, I'm like, I'm 60. I can muddle my way through probably for about 20 years. I don't want to, but I think I can, because I have enough work ethic and skill. But you guys are screwed. 20-year-olds, you are going to be living in a socialist system that is going to give everything to everybody, and it's going to require all of your wealth. Or
until the Ponzi scheme runs out and they run out of money.
Exactly. And that's when it collapses. And I keep trying to tell people, this is why we need freedom and liberty conservatives. This is why we need people that will drastically scale back government. Don't cheat, don't kill, don't steal. I don't care what else you do. Honestly, that's maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but government should really be scaled back to such a degree that we could probably fund it with a 10% national sales tax and maybe a few sales taxes in our state, and that would be it. And people would say, well, how would you pay for this, Jim? People ask me all the time, how would you pay for libraries? And I'm like, I'm not sure. The community should figure that out. If you want a library in your town, maybe you should have a tax. If you feel like you should have a tax for your library, it should be probably a voluntary tax. Here, who wants to pay for the library? And I know that really scares a lot of people when you say that, but we've got this. Do you know the salaries that the people that manage these library systems, they're making, $190,000, $200,000 a year. I'm the director of the Wayne County Library System. And the amounts of money, they're so top heavy. We don't need that to really have people to go check out a book or read. We don't need that.
You could never run a business the way the state is being run right now, with is top heavy management and middle management in all of these unconstitutional organizations. It is incredible. And I think the thing of it is that because they have disadvantaged the state so much by understanding how money actually works in the taxes. It's like, okay, so let's just say that instead of working until October to pay your taxes, we let you keep your taxes and then decide, like you said, think about that much money. Let's just say somebody works for $100,000 a year, and they're paying, I don't know, let's say $70,000 in taxes when you start adding it all up, right? And throwing a little bit of inflation in there on and on. Now think about what would happen if they had all that money in their own pockets. And then you started over with the taxes, which are in fact constitutional, like a consumption tax. And if they decide they want to support a library in the Little Byron Center Township, where I live here, let's just say we have 15,000 people here. And everybody says, okay, we're going to put a tax on for, I don't know, say like $100 a year to fund the library. Think about that. You could fund a library system very, very easily for, even a couple $100,000 a year if you really want to have that tied into it. If you knocked all the top down spending off, or whatever else it is. I mean, we could make this so easy. And the other thing is the corporations who have their own economy that are taking advantage of this state. Look at Nestle. Nestle paid $250 for a permit to draw millions and millions and millions of gallons of water without anything back to the state. This shouldn't be. When you look at what's happening in Alaska, the people of Alaska get a royalty of every drop of petroleum, any petroleum that comes out of the ground, because it's the people of the state of Michigan that own that resource. And the corporations are walking out of the door with the natural resources of this state for nothing. And we get nothing back. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absurd.
I think Trump has it right. The wealth and resources of the United States are tremendous. And we could theoretically, in a process, bring ourselves back to some equilibrium with common sense use of our natural resources, whether it would be oil, water, natural gas. I mean, whole nother subject, but we're going to do away with natural gas, something that is almost limitless in the ground. And these libs are going to get rid of natural gas. And
it's a lie of green energy. It's a lie.
Well, in Chicago, they're talking about banning natural gas stoves and natural gas in Chicago. And guess where the electricity that's going to be produced to replace that natural gas, guess what it's produced with?
It's got to be something that Pritzker's involved in.
Coal and natural gas. So yeah. You're taking it away from the people, and then these big corporations, these big monopolies that we've given these big monopolies, energy companies. My dog is bugging me from the side here. We've given these big energy companies monopolies, and we're going to take it away from we the people. Like you, Donna Brandenburg, cannot use natural gas, but billionaire global corporation can, as long as they sequester it into the ground. And oh, by the way, we're not going to really give China a hard time about all the natural gas and coal they're using, because they're actually giving us a lot of money. So we're really not going to harass them about the carbon they're putting in the air. But Donna, you can't put any more carbon in the air anymore. And so when you really look at this, all you have to do is follow the money, follow where the corruption is. And in my original thesis, the corruption is in the money, and the money flows back to the politician, and then he votes for policies that further erode your rights and freedoms, and the corporation and the elites and the oligarchs and these socialist structures. And really, truly, it is about socialism. I mean, we're headed there. We're some people will defend socialism. Socialism eventually becomes Marxism and totalitarian control. When people are out there talking about we've got to force jab all the children in the United States, we're not far away from that. We saw under this COVID supposed pandemic, lots and lots of control mechanisms that our government did. I told my state rep, this was before I was in politics, I said, you have to stop this. He goes, we can't. We've got a bad Supreme Court. They're going to slap us down. I said, shut the government down. Shut it down. Stop flowing the money to them. They're like, the Supreme Court will come in and order us to fund the State Department of Health that was shutting down all the restaurants, shutting down all the businesses, shutting down all the hair salons, shutting down the schools. I told the schools they should opt out of the closures. You should just stay open. And they're like, we can't, legally, we can't. I said, you are local school boards. You have autonomy. You can tell the state to go fly a kite. We're opening our school. Well, they said, well, the state will stop our money flow. They'll cut off our money. So there's where the money is. The money is the control mechanism. That's the control mechanism. They've got the money. So Donna, I can't conclude that the only way we can stop this is we really have to find a way to take the power away from these control structures and bring it back to the people. Bring it back to the people who vote, and you have to elect representatives that will go there for freedom, liberty, and constitutional government. If you don't do this, then you are participating in the system. Yeah, I can't say it any other way. Don't complain about what you get then, because they are going to need more money. It's going to continuously consume more dollars, bigger government. Who knows what will our budget be in 4 years? Maybe $100 billion. Healthcare is not getting cheaper, right? Why is healthcare so expensive? Because the government is so heavily involved in it. Healthcare would not be as expensive as it is if the government were out of it, or drastically out of it. Education.
What really bothered me was the doctors were getting a kickback for how many people they vaccinated. Mm-hmm. They were getting incentives by the government to vaccinate more people.
Follow the money.
So wrong.
Again, follow the money. And this money, who did this money go to? Pfizer, Bayer, all your big pharmaceuticals. We were, us 8 constitutional conservatives, this 8 freedom and liberty representatives were at Pfizer demanding answers. We protested. My first month in office, we were at Pfizer in Kalamazoo, in Portage there. Why weren't 54 of us there? Why do the Dems cover for Pfizer? Follow the money. Pfizer is giving the Democrat Party tons and tons of millions and billions of dollars, right? Follow the money. And if you look at the National Democrat Party and our national Democrat elected leaders, there's a flow of money from these corporations to them for their political campaigns. It doesn't come to constitutional conservatives. The sad state of affairs is we have to really work hard to raise our money with grassroots individuals and people who believe in our message. And it is very difficult. It is extremely difficult. But I do believe that if we lead, and we lead in such a way that that people trust what we're saying. Like, I really trust Jim DeSana. He does want to scale back government. I believe there are people out there who have means that would say, I believe in what he's saying. I will give and I will contribute to that because I trust that he's going to do it. But a lot of people are like, oh, you politicians, you're all the same. You take our money and then you go in and you just vote for more government and you vote for more mandates. And honestly, we have not, this is the legacy I was pointing out to you in the opening. We haven't given them a reason to believe otherwise. Politicians have not given the people a reason to believe that we are truly going to scale back government, that we're truly going to give you your freedom back. They're like, oh, no, you're going to get in there and the people are going to say, Jim, be quiet. You don't want to lose your staff. They're going to take $140,000 of your allotment away. So we get $140,000 to run our office, and we can use it in various means. We can mail, we hire staff, we can put out little messages to the public. It's basically for us to get our message out as an office holder. Well, when they tell you they'll pull that money, the only money you get other than your own meager salary as a state rep, when they tell you you're going to pull that money, most people back down and say, oh, I don't want that to happen to me. And I'm telling them, go ahead, take my money away. You want to do that? If that's how corrupt and out of control this government is, the people need to see how bad off we are. Really, truly, that Republicans will actually punish freedom and liberty constitutional conservatives. It's not the Democrats. It's Republicans that are punishing freedom and liberty constitutional conservatives. That's my message. If you don't believe it, then we can have a long debate, and I can show you the structures like we've talked about in this program, why it's happening. Why are only a few state reps alarmed at putting cell towers on school property? Maybe because Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T give hundreds of thousands of dollars to Republican elected officials. And they say, hey, don't support Jim DeSana's cell tower bill on schools. We gave you a lot of money. So people say, well, the quid pro quo is hard to find. You don't have to find the quid pro quo. Just look at their donations and where they come from. So the wealth, these wealthy elites, if they have the ability to get millions and even billions of dollars back from their government, why would they not do that? Mm-hmm. It's a good investment for them. They're like, I give $100,000 to this candidate. He's going to control this body. He's going to vote for corporate welfare for me for a plant in Marshall, Michigan, a Chinese battery plant in Marshall, Michigan. And many of your listeners probably already know this, $1.8 billion of your tax money given to cattle, or indirectly given to cattle through Ford Motor Company. I sat in my office and I told General Motors, listen, I love the fact that we build cars in our country, but I do not want to give you taxpayer money when you can do it yourself. You sell your product, you get paid for your product. The taxpayer doesn't need to pay for you to make your product. That's corporate welfare. It's wrong. If I'm against welfare in general, I should sure as heck be against corporate welfare.
And why is it that all of these big corporations are the ones where they're funneling these big dollars to, and the mom and pop stores get nothing? And when you look at what happened during COVID, I mean, what I was seeing is that it was an absolute attack on small to medium business instead of it. And the open doors went to the corporations. You could go to Home Depot, you could go to some of these big corporations, and the doors. Yeah. What's that?
Amazon's increase in wealth during COVID was tremendous. And so the little mom and pops couldn't stay open or couldn't make enough money, but you could sure buy it from Amazon, and you could sure buy it from the big corporations. It's a money laundering scheme. Let's face it. Our government is it's in the bag for big corporations, and the small businesses, family operated businesses, they're regulating them out of existence. I just had a person I was talking to in my office. The state is making it very difficult for these small processors of meat. So the people they are really this. You're going to hear this more and more. People are going to say, I can't buy a cow. I can't buy a pig. I can't go to a farm and put meat in my freezer. I have to now go to Meijer or Kroger. Well, guess who's behind that, right? Big corporations don't want you to be able to grow your own food or process your own food. And by eliminating all these small processors, you're not going to get a gigantic processor to help you with butchering a cow or butchering. And honestly, I mean, their whole program is really to grow meat in a lab anyway. They're going to be like, hey, let's just do away with farming. Let's do away with livestock farming and tell people it's illegal to do that. And you're seeing that all across our society in these really socialistic states. They are making it very difficult for people to freely do what our grandparents and great grandparents could do perfectly legal. I could sell a lamb to somebody. I could sell a cow to somebody. And, there was a butcher house down the block, and you could have it and you could put it in your freezer. And that was the way you fed your family. No, they want you all to be dependent upon going to these big corporate stores or having the food delivered by Kroger or Meijer. You name the big outfit out there. I'm not saying that they don't provide a valuable service. I know most people out there that are listening today shop at a grocery store. I'm just telling you, be careful. Be careful the road we're traveling down. It's not going to be easy. They're making it very difficult for families, very difficult for middle income people to survive. And a lot of people are just throwing in the towel and saying, listen, we can't have a child. It's too expensive. They might have one child or two children. They're like, I have a lot of people tell me, we thought about having a third child. It was just too expensive. And that's really sad to me, that would be that cost that the government has put on every family would stop them from bringing life into the world. And we need people, Donna. We need people in Michigan. When you are in we are a net outflow state. So when you are a net outflow state, and and these businesses that are in Michigan are depending upon people, because what is it really? Honestly, people are consumers. The money that they spend is what these companies depend upon. We need people. Well, if people start leaving Michigan, which is already happening, and our governor is trying to study with this population council, and they're like, what was their conclusion? More taxes and more infrastructure improvements and more giveaways to attract people. So what is more offensive? What could be more offensive than you and I living here in Michigan, struggling, and the state taking away our wealth by taxation and saying, oh, hey, you guys coming from New Mexico, guess what? We got $10,000 from you, courtesy of Jim DeSana and Donna Brandenburg. Their taxes are now paying for your business to come into Michigan, and we'll give you a credit on your house, or we'll give you a credit on your flat that you're going to be renting in downtown Detroit, because nobody's going to own a house here in a short period of time, whether we want to agree whether we really own a house or not. And I am in favor of doing away with property taxes. We have
yes, I am too.
To figure out a way to eliminate property taxes. Whatever we can all agree on, we have got to eliminate property taxes. The right to private property, the free right to own property and to pass it on to future generations or to sell it to another person is tantamount to what our society is based upon. Why did people come to America? To own property and farm, to own property and subsist, to own property and make themselves wealthy, to own property and pump oil. I mean, look at the founding of America. They came here because we were an great untapped resource. And our founding fathers knew that our freedom was what made us great. So freedom makes America great. If we do away with freedom, we're not great. We're basically just like Europe. They told us we were going to become like Europe. Our economy was going to become very socialized, very centralized. What have we witnessed? We have a centralized economy. They're going to do away with cash. They're going to control everything. And you're going to pay massive amounts of taxes to be able to live in Michigan, in Illinois, in Pennsylvania, in New York, in California. I don't know why how are we going to convince people to stay here? I mean, I, as a legislator, have to say, don't leave yet. We're trying to do something. Don't leave, please.
Stand and fight with us. Let's get Queen Gretch out of there, who is, hell bent on destroying this state. And I want to go back to a point you made about the farming. Look at the attacks on farming, the food processors that have been burnt down, the extra regulations, which they have no right to regulate our food or productivity whatsoever. It's let the buyer beware. If you've got, and I don't know if you know this, but if you have a half an acre garden, 36 chickens and 2 goats, you can feed 9 families. And
do you know that? Do you know that? I have a bill that would allow on a quarter acre would allow 5 chickens. And if you have a half acre, it goes up incrementally. But I'd agree. The right to produce.
There should be no regulation on it. I mean, it should be, should be able to do what you want to do. And the government could tell you nothing.
My incremental approach here is to let anybody who has a property to have chickens. And the right to produce food, I believe, is a basic human right. Also, just like the right to self-defense, our founding fathers believed that the right to defend your own life was a basic human natural law right. And the reason they wrote the Second Amendment was because they knew the only way you would be able to defend your own life would be with armaments. You cannot do it. If the government comes at you with a gun, you've got to have a gun to defend yourself from the government. And I know that scares the heck out of people, but that's what our founding fathers, they were under a tyrannical king, and the king was coming to take their ammo. So now we're going to have our Democrats in Michigan regulating your ammo very soon and regulating the size of the magazine you can have in your gun. No right whatsoever. It's all unconstitutional, right? But they're going to pass laws. And they're going to say, well, we just passed a law. Now you have to live under this law. And I'm here saying this is unconstitutional. freedom and liberty, constitutional conservatives are crying out from the hilltop saying, stop this now, or this is all going to fall apart. Once you start denying somebody their right to self-defense, look at the carjackings in Washington, D.C., and they're even saying they can't prosecute and arrest their way out of the problem. This is a problem. People need to be able to defend themselves, defend their property, defend their life. The socialists and the Marxists don't want you to have that ability, because then their opportunity to take your wealth is much greater, because you cannot defend yourself. The biggest thing we have to worry about in America is a tyrannical government. I'm sorry. I love my neighbors. I'm not worried about my neighbors. I have great neighbors. I am worried about my government. I fear my government more now than I ever have in my entire life. And I said, either I have to get into state office and fight, or I have to stop complaining and I have to leave the state, because I cannot fathom what my children and grandchildren are going to live under if this continues. If this march towards socialism continues, we are going to have a very difficult time living here. It's a beautiful state. I mean, Michigan is an absolutely gorgeous place in the world. And yet we're going to be like California. We're going to regulate people out of existence. We're going to make it so hard to live, so hard to be able to afford to live and have a family and have a piece of private property that you can live on. And I agree with you. People could produce their own food on a very small piece of property, whether you had chickens, whether you had a garden, and the government really doesn't want you to do that. And I'm from the government, and I'm in the government. I'm in the belly of the beast, and I'm going to tell you, they want to regulate you, human beings, out of existence. It's crazy. They'll tell you the opposite. They'll say, "Oh, we're just trying to help you. We're trying to help you be able to have all these great things in life." They can't. There's no well of beautiful things that they can give you. The endless well. It's going to run dry, and when it runs dry, you're going to say, "You all lied to me. Now I'm poor. I'm destitute. What do I do now?" And that's when they'll go and say, well, we need to take over the entire system now because there's too many poor and destitute people. Look at these countries that these people are fleeing to America from, these countries that Marxism has been tried in. It doesn't work. It doesn't work anywhere. It doesn't work in Venezuela. It doesn't work in China. It doesn't work in Russia. But, you know, we have people here, if you really sat down and looked at their viewpoint in life, they think that government can provide for you everything that you need. I'm telling you, run from those people. That is one of the scariest things to hear from somebody. Look at what they've done to our healthcare system. Look at what they've done to our educational system. They have ruined just about everything they've touched. If you don't agree, I think that's a separate side debate we can talk about. But
they don't agree, they're probably getting a payout by the government rather than having to be like the rest of us who work and pay into it.
Right. Follow the money.
Follow the money. Do you see what we could go into a lot of different directions with this, like Maduro, what he's done in Venezuela, and they just decided to have an election and take over part of Guyana right next to them, and just say, no, it's our property. We just decided to take it because they found a great big petroleum deposit there, and they were actually doing very well financially. 800,000 people there, 24 million people in Venezuela, dead broke. And I mean broke, with no infrastructure because they didn't put it into their oil production that they have. And so they're going for the easy things by just taking over a country.
Well, and that demonstrates Marxism.
That's what Marxists and Democrats do. They take everything.
Marxism is, to a degree, once Marxists run out of money, they will go and try to steal the wealth from somewhere else to replace what they've squandered. America is the greatest nation. This is not debatable, right? Anybody who would want to debate this would lose. America is the greatest, most wealthy, most generous nation the world has ever seen. No debate. How could anybody even refute that? And what's it been built on? Free market enterprise, freedom to make something out of yourself, freedom of almost in every area, in the market economy, in the freedom to the government to leave you alone, freedom to worship, right? Our freedom to worship, all of our freedoms that people flock to America. And yet we have people in America, and honestly, we're going to see this play out in 24 with Joe Biden and his Bidenomics. We have people in America who really believe that America was wrong from the beginning, that our founding fathers were all basically slaveholders and racists. And when you look at history and you look at our country, they were geniuses. The Constitution that they put in place that we're no longer following, unfortunately, they were so smart. They envisioned that we could have a tyrannical government. That's why they put the Second Amendment in. They envisioned that people would be censored and your free speech would be taken away. That's why the First Amendment is such an absolute right.
They lived with it. They experienced that.
Mm-hmm. They were being killed for speaking out against the king, right? Or killed or jailed. Well, in Canada, it isn't too far of a stretch to look. In Canada, people are being jailed for free speech. Look what they did. Look what they did to the truckers in Canada. What the government did to them. What they did to their company. They closed their bank accounts. They took away their wealth. So a tyrannical government is much more of a fear in my mind than problems we might have in our society that could be solved, to me, by charity. Like if you and I live in a community and they say, hey, Donna, Jim, there's somebody that's really hurting and we need to try to help them. America has proven this over our entire history that we have the ability to go out and charitably help our neighbor. But that's going to die now because they're going to say, listen, the government's got it covered. Don't worry about giving charity. The government's going to give them free healthcare, free food, free housing, free car, free phone. I mean, there's no end to it. There is absolutely no end to what they're going to do.
There's a gal in this state who has just been thrown in jail for in my opinion, the judge was wrong. It looks like a violation of free speech because she was talking about common law. And he came right out and said, I'm going to make an example of her. And I think this free speech thing is, and the censorship and big tech and everything is one of those things. Every time they hit us, we're going to have to absolutely stand unwavering and say, I'm not going to change what I'm going to do. You can keep coming at me, but we'll figure out how to continue on to speak the truth. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to just be one person. You go after one of us. We need to have 100, 200,000 to come back and put these bastards in their place, because that's what they are. They are taking.
Going back to our previous example, if during COVID, all of us who attend church would have just not complied, if we would have said, come and get us, come and drag us out of church, if we all did that, they don't have enough police officers. Besides that, the police officers go to church too. They would say, I'm not enforcing this. Sorry.
I went up to two cops and I said, when this started, and I put my wrist out and I said, go ahead and cuff me because I'm not going to comply. I'm not shutting my businesses down. I'm not going to be quiet. I am not going to wear the mask, and I'm not going to comply with this. And, you want to talk about being like a leper in a society, you go into the big box stores, and this was nuts. It's like, I looked at this and it's like critical thinking. It's like they've got one door that everybody can go in and out of. Boy, talk about funneling everybody into a position to be right next to each other. Yeah. They were going to make sure we all got sick. Instead of making it safer, they created even a worse problem. And that's what they're doing all through society. It's amazing. I absolutely love what you stand for and everything that you say. It's like, I've been really thinking about it. I'm going to be crafting something that I want to send out to every one of our legislators, because I'm going to tell you what, the illegal and the unlawful election we had in 2020 and 2022 cannot be walked away from. We're going to have to just like the Constitution of America or of Michigan, 1963 Constitution, it was illegally installed. It's not even a legal constitution because they failed in the metrics of the parameters of the all of the proposals they put in were not legally put in place because they just rewrite the rules, right? And I really want to talk to you about this and get offline, because
let me also tell you, I forgot to mention, I am one of 11 legislators suing the federal government regarding Proposal 2. And we won't go too deep in the weeds on that because it's a long story. But only 11 of us sued on Proposal 2. Where are the other 46 or 45. Where are they?
Who all is involved in that's suing that?
Our Freedom and Liberty Caucus, our Freedom Caucus plus a few senators. And so here's the concept, right? Proposal 2 said a lot of things, but it said no ID. And I believe it's illegal. It is illegal and a violation of my constitutionally protected rights of equal protection that somebody could walk into a voting place and vote without ID. That's not, the Supreme Court has to rule. You have to identify yourself if you're a voter. So only that small group decided to sue the federal government. But in the US Constitution, it says only state legislatures can regulate the time, manner, and place of elections, federal elections, right? And so Proposal 2 is unconstitutional on its face. The people cannot pass a referendum. Well, we know about Proposal 2 and how much money came in from Soros and all these other groups. There were people voting for Proposal 2 that actually thought it was enshrining voter ID into the Constitution. It did not. And drop boxes, I'm sorry. Mailing a ballot, I'm sorry, not legal. Your vote needs to be presented to the clerk and you have to be identified. So how can you identify yourself if you drop a ballot in a post office box? How can you identify yourself if you drop it in a drop box? It needs to be in person. You need to deliver it to your clerk with an ID. I will not budge on that.
I love that. I love that. I love that. It's beautiful.
So,
we need to talk more about this election because I've been really working hard on exposing some of the nonsense in the elections. I have the guys that are really chasing down the CISA and some of the problems with that on Mondays. And it is the cheating that has gone on. You cannot look at the actual data and walk away from that with any belief that we have safe and secure elections. And there's not one failure point. It's the absentee ballots. It's the drop boxes. It is all of it. The whole thing.
It's the qualified voter file. It's the QVF file. It's got dead
sure
people
is.
on it. It has. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that got absentee ballots from previous homeowners. One case, he got 8 absentee ballots at his house for the previous 2 homeowners over a 20-year time period. People who've gotten, one gentleman got a ballot for his daughter that lives in California for 15 years. He said, now what would stop me from applying for a ballot in her name, filling it out and sending it in with no signature verification, no signature required? I go, the only thing that would stop you is honesty, right? The fact that you're honest and some people are not. I'll leave you with this. Going back to the COVID pandemic, I wanted to tell you a funny story. A friend of mine, a real good, strong patriot. We've got a really good core network of patriotic Americans, and we're all sharing notes and talking all the time. And when she went into Costco during COVID, she refused to wear a mask. And the people at the door that have the red coats on, the red vests at Costco, they were like, ma'am, come back, miss, come back. You can't go in, miss, you have to stop. And she said, she turned and looked back to them and said, not now, redcoats. And kept going. And
that's
I
right.
loved it. I said to her, I said, Megan, I said, you have my admiration. I said, so many of us went into stores, refused to comply, and were willing to be kicked out of places or like, please come and get us. I went to church every Sunday during COVID, and our pastor never stopped. He never stopped having services. He said, they can come and drag us out of this church. It's not happening.
I love this conversation. I really do. And I am so grateful for you. I wanted to read some of the comments in the chat because there's been a lot of them. Charlotte says, I will back Jim DeSana. Is it Santa or Sana?
I always tell people the easiest way to remember is insane for running for public office. So
there you go. Jim DeSana. She said, I will back Jim DeSana 100%. Thank you. And there's just a lot of really good comments by Leb and Charlotte, etc. Funny Animal Lover has got some things on here and such. World Economic Forum and NWO is what they're doing to our future generation. If you draw a circle around an army of ants, they'll stay inside. Wake up, people. And I just thank you for the good comments there, Charlotte. Had to give my hands because of adjacent property and the only blade of grass connected to mine, no chickens. So I had to give up my food in the city of Howell. This is absolutely unlawful what they're doing to this nation to destroy people's rights. Even when you look at the homeowners association, which there's a lot of those, they're unconstitutional. They were based on the laws around condo association, where you don't own the land. When you own the land that your house is on, the homeowner associations, they're absolutely an unlawful entity. And they can actually, at this point in time, they've engineered this so badly that a homeowners association can seize the rights of the property owners. This is unconstitutional. And anyone that buys into this is committing treason. It's like, you look back at this, it's like, there's so much of it. It's like, it blows your mind. It is treason. When you violate the rights of your neighbor through a homeowners association, it is unlawful.
How about not allowing the people to put up a political sign in their yard because it's against the homeowners association,
or an American flag?
Yes. And one of my cities in my district, they regulated the size of signs. So a political sign couldn't be bigger than 5 by 7. And yet commercially, there's lots and lots of signs, real estate signs that are 4 by 8 in my town. And I'm like, and then they also regulate the time that the sign can be put up. My clerk called me and said, you have to have your signs down there outside the time of the ordinance we passed. I said, that ordinance is unconstitutional. I'm not taking my signs down. And, people, and, she got a complaint from a Democrat who said, hey, the timing for the political signs in your ordinance is not on, it's before the time. It was before the time of the election. I think it was maybe 20 days early. And I said, you have no right to regulate free speech on private property. I'm sorry. You don't.
How come they can tell you to take your signs off of public property, but then you'll have beggars on the corners with their signs standing there, or put them up next to them, and it's all of a sudden it's free speech? It's only about the agenda and what they're doing. So with that said, I think I want to close out here with a prayer today. And I really appreciate what you have to say, Jim, so much. And you are truly one of the few people, and I mean very few people, that I've talked to who has a grasp on what's going on in the state of Michigan. I would love to find more. If you know anybody else that actually standing for something, let me know, because I haven't found much here. I feel like this is a state completely the poster.
Our entire Freedom Caucus, which is now down to 4 people because the establishment they've wanted us to disappear. That they don't like us because we're calling them out, and so they've Maddock, Stephen Cara, Neil Frisky, and myself. But Matt Maddock, Stephen Cara, and Neil Frisky, all Freedom and Liberty conservatives. We're all basically out there trying to protect your freedom and liberty. I know that there's always personality in politics, but we are out there fighting every day for true constitutional conservatism, and we are calling out the deep state. I'm telling you, people will say, oh, Jim, you just use that term deep state. I'm like, I just laid it out in an hour and 20 minutes. We've talked about nothing but this deep, dark money that controls your government. If you don't believe me, get involved. I can show you. You can come visit me in my office. I can show you how this works. They work it very well. So freedom and liberty conservatives, ask them their stances on truly limited government. You can ask direct questions of your reps. Do you believe that our government is too big to such a degree that it's going to have to be scaled back drastically? If they say, oh, no, I think that we're doing all right, run and find another candidate, because I'm telling you, this gigantic government is consuming so much of your wealth and taking away so many of our freedoms. We're going to lose our country. We've already lost our state to the Dems. It's lost. We have got to regain it. The only way we're going to regain it is going to be some massive awakening of the people when they realize the lie that has been told to them, that you can have everything you want from the government. It's a lie. Okay. I'm telling you. And it's not just the Democrats. You've got to hold your Republican elected officials accountable. If you don't,
all of them.
And if you are not, then I go back to my original statement. You are either looking the other way or you're participating in the corrupt system. You have some skin in the game. Like it might be, hey, I'm the director of the Kent County Library System. I'm making $250,000 a year. I don't want the system to fall apart. Well, unless we wake up and realize that the way this has all been set up has been by these big oligarchs and corporate elites to garner your tax money, to be given to them so that they have all of this extra wealth. You don't have it. The average citizen doesn't have it. They're giving it up to the government. We've got to stop. We have to say, government, you don't need any more money. And matter of fact, I need some of my money back. And by the way, I need my private property back. And by the way, I get to do what I want to do on my private property. As long as I'm not, causing a plume of smoke to go into my neighbor's kitchen, I think I'm okay with my chickens and my goats and my goat's milk. And by the way, I think I'm okay selling my gallon of goat's milk to my neighbor, which is illegal, by the way. As you know, you can't sell a gallon of goat's milk if you have it. So all these things that we're talking about, we could go so deep and so long. I will summarize. You have got to get constitutional conservatives into office quickly. And if they are not a constitutional conservative and they are not for your freedom and liberty, you've got to find somebody else to vote for. And
I'm gonna speak up here for a comment in the chat. It's like, for real, very few de jure office acting de jure of the people. And not only that, Beer at the Parade, who happens to be a friend of mine, says Donald J. Trump will shrink our government and hand it back to us. It took 7 years, but we're finally ready to accept the responsibility. And you have no idea how wealthy American can become, from Donald J. Trump, the rightful president of the United States. And us Iowans will trade you folks Mike DeWine for any of your corrupt polls in Michigan. Straight up.
Yeah.
That's funny. And Leb says, I used to go around and around with Tommy Brand, and it was like beating my head against a brick wall. Same with Pete Hoekstra. And there's a lot of people. I have very few heroes here. I don't think I have any, but I like what it's like, I certainly like what you have to say. And I really appreciate getting to know you and having you stand for those principles that we know. You're really the first person in Michigan that's in an office that I have ever talked to that got the guts to say what needs to be said. And for that, I really thank you. And, you fall pretty close to that, that hero category for me. I'd like to know you a little bit more and keep talking about this because like I tell everybody, this is not an insult to you or anybody else, but trust is earned. And we, that is earned over a period of time. And I just want to,
I always say, my votes are my actions, and they speak for themselves. If somebody tells you something but votes differently, or their operations are different, or they don't join this lawsuit. I've had so many people asking my fellow reps around me, like, why didn't you join the lawsuit? Why didn't you vote for the impeachment of Dana Nessel? They don't have a good answer. So they might say, well, I voted good, but their operations are horrible. So the way you vote and your operations, what you stand up and fight for, what you will be willing to lose your job over. I'm in a 50-50 district. I'm not in one of those deep red districts where 65% of the people vote Republican. I live in Monroe County, which is 65% Republican, but this gerrymandered redistricting program has put me in a 50-50 district. So I could lose my job tomorrow, but I feel like if I don't speak out from the hilltops to the whole state of Michigan and tell them, listen, the fix is in, you guys have to wake up. Our only peaceful means of reversing this is the political process. That's the only way. I had to get off the bench and come into the game because there was no other way. There's no other way to fix this unless we can get control of our state government back. And if you don't put liberty-minded, freedom-minded conservatives into office, we're never going to get there. And that's discouraging. I'm here to give people hope. I am a hopeful person. My happy place is not Lansing. My happy place is my farm, my cows, my wife, my children. I didn't mean to put my wife behind my cows, by the way.
I don't know. I'd put a lot of people behind my horses right now, and so my dog.
They would say that I was a slip of the tongue, but I love my farm. I love my family. I love my home. I really wouldn't be in state government if the state government was chugging right along if we were in Idaho or Tennessee or Texas, I would say, listen, I love my state. I love how they're running it. I love what they're doing. I don't need to get into politics. I'm going to stay home. I'm in Michigan, though, and we are all in Michigan. Most of your audience is in Michigan. I would say, listen, we're going to lose it, guys. We are going to lose it. If you don't have a sense of urgency or a sense of alarm right now, I don't know what's going to wake you up. If you're not woke now, if you're not awake to what's going on to our country and to our state, boy, I probably can't even do it with a cattle prod. You wouldn't wake up. And so all of your audience needs to be force multipliers. They need to go out and talk to 100 people and say, listen, it's bad, guys. It's really bad.
Pass this interview along. I keep telling everybody that you can be a digital soldier. I mean, that's what General Flynn did, is told everybody, hey, we need digital soldiers who are willing to step forward and say something, and then pass information on. Get out there in the digital space and pass this information on to other people and support people like Jim and such. So I'm going to say a prayer, and then we're going to go on to our day here. Okay. So thank you so much, dear Heavenly Father, for everything that you've done. We ask your blessings upon this nation, this state, that your truth, that your governance, the way that you want to see the state run comes exactly and only from you. We ask that you would bless every single person who has stepped forward into the political realm, that you would give them great discernment and wisdom, that you would help them as they go about their day to make good decisions for this state, not based on money, but just because it's the right thing to do, and help all of us to get in the game, to do something, and realize that it doesn't matter what anybody does, as long as they're following what you are calling them to do, it's going to be a right decision. Help us keep our eyes on you. You are good to us all the time. We're so thankful for every single thing that you've done for us. We ask your blessings on the younger generation who has been truly abandoned by the government school situation we've got going on right now. Give parents not only the bravery to stand up for their kids, but the motivation to raise their children in a manner that you would want them to, that our nation would keep our eyes not on the money, not on the things that in the material world that people look at, but the fact that our greatness always comes from our devotion to you, our service to you, and in our selflessness to take care of this beautiful world that we're in and our relationship that we have with you. Thank you so much for Jesus Christ, our Savior, your precious only begotten Son that you gave to us because you wanted to have a relationship with us. And we're not slaves. We're children of yours. And we thank you so much for that redemption, for being our Father and being good to us all the time. We love you so very much. You're a great friend to us, and we want to be a friend to you in everything that we do. In Jesus' name, Jesus' precious name, we pray.
Amen.
So with that said, I'm going to do it now. This is where you go right there, BrandenburgforGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States. And I'd love to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, who could have this nation fixed in a New York minute if we make sure that our elections are illegal, or that are legal, not illegal, but legal elections that are free and fair, that are lawful elections, which we don't have right now. I'm not going to mince words about it. We have fake, rigged, fraudulent, maladministration. You've got every crime that you could even put out there that's been part of our elections. Criminal conspiracy, not conspiracy theory, but criminal conspiracy. The list goes on and on. We've got more than enough proof. Foreign involvement in our elections, electioneering, the threat to national security through these elections, the whole 10 years, every single one of these things, our nation is guilty, and our state's poster child for it right now. So we're going to have to get involved in such. So, and to say that, God bless you all. God bless all
everybody
whom you love. And God bless America. Make it a great day. If you don't have any good examples out there, Be one. Get involved. Be a leader. God has tapped every one of us out there to stand up for this nation and to do something. Tag, you're it. So have a wonderful day, and I will see you Monday. Have a great weekend. Rejoice. God's in control. No matter what we see, we look through problems to try to look for the solutions, to know what we're really dealing with. Turn to God in prayer, and then come back and fight, not for money. It's not for money that we fight for the children, our younger people, our older people, this nation. It's because of our love of God, and that's enough of a reward right there. So stay on the line just a minute. I'm going to end the broadcast, and then we'll just talk for a second. So have a great day, guys. See you Monday.